After constructive discussions with the authorities in Colombo and during the annual meetings in Marrakesh, IMF Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka Peter Brewer and Deputy Mission Chief Katsiarinas Virizenka issued the following statement. Quote, the IMF team reached a staff-level agreement with the Sri Lankan authorities on the first review under an economic reform program supported by a 48-month extended fund facility arrangement. The arrangement was approved by the IMF Executive Board for a total amount of about $3 billion on March 20th, 2023. Unquote. The statement went on to note, quote, upon approval by the IMF Executive Board, Sri Lanka would have access to about $330 million, bringing the total IMF financial support dispersed under the arrangement to about $660 million, unquote. The International Monetary Fund on Friday said that the agreement reached between the government of Sri Lanka and the Exim Bank of China did not have an impact on the IMF staff-level agreement on the first review of Sri Lanka's extended fund facility arrangement.
Was the news from China that there's an agreement between Sri Lanka and the China Exim Bank, did that have an impact on now reaching staff-level agreement? And the answer to that is no. The staff-level agreement is the outcome of having agreed between the IMF staff and the Sri Lankan authorities on a set of strong measures that will help achieve the objectives of the program in the various areas, revenue-based fiscal consolidation, the strengthening the social supports to the poor and vulnerable, financial stability, debt sustainability, all these objectives. The reaching debt sustainability is a separate track. The authorities are engaged with their creditors in finding debt treatments that would help restore debt sustainability in line with the debt targets under the program. And so that is the second leg of activity that needs to be brought forward in order for us to be able to present the review to the IMF Executive Board.
IMF is providing technical assistance to Sri Lanka for the introduction of a property tax that will likely come to effect in 2025 as a key source of additional income.
As you recall, Sri Lanka is a country with one of the lowest tax takes in the world, and that was a key contributor to the crisis, especially when taxes were lowered even further in 2019. And then shocks hit, the country couldn't handle it, and so that was a key contributor to the crisis. The program is all about addressing the root causes of the crisis. Raising revenue is a key element of it. That's a property tax, and is something that is in the program, but not quite yet, because it's recognized that this is something that takes a lot of time to put into place. And it is in fact important for the Sri Lankan authorities to make preparations for that. And in fact, the IMF is also providing some technical assistance in that regard. So it's important to get started with it, but it will take some time for that to become effective. And it's envisaged that in 2025, property tax would be a key source of additional revenue in that year.
The IMF Deputy Mission Chief for Sri Lanka said, in order to eliminate the financial losses in the electricity sector, it is crucial to maintain cost recovery in electricity pricing. Speaking to reporters on Friday, she said the financial losses in the electricity sector eventually became a burden on the taxpayers, especially on the poor and vulnerable.
And there we would like to emphasize that sudden electricity cost recovery is crucially important to eliminate financial losses in the electricity sector, because at the end of the day, that becomes a burden on the taxpayers, including on those who are poor and vulnerable. So it's one of the key elements of the fund-supported program in Sri Lanka. At the same time, as Sarvat has highlighted, the impact of the tariff hike on the poor and should be mitigated by the strong social safety net. And in addition to that, Sri Lanka should implement structural reforms to make the electricity sector more efficient and improve the governance of state-owned enterprises more generally. That should lower the cost of electricity in the medium and long term. And that's something that the authorities are working on.
The financing assurances review was also discussed during the press briefing.
On financing assurances review, sort of what constitutes adequate progress? Essentially, we need to see a clear path to restoring debt sustainability in Sri Lanka. The financing assurances review focus on whether adequate progress has been made with the debt restructuring, and whether we can have confidence that debt treatments in line with these debt targets that I described will be concluded in a timely manner. So really the objective here is to see Sri Lanka on a clear path towards restoring debt sustainability. With respect to the question on Sri Lanka is sort of on a faster track. So what I recall that was being mentioned in Marrakesh is that there was a discussion about generally how quickly financing assurances can be secured. So there was a comparison across countries. You may recall that in recent history, since let's say COVID, quite a number of countries had to restructure their debt, like Chad and Zambia, Sri Lanka, Ghana, roughly speaking in that chronological order. And the time it has taken to secure financing assurances for these countries has become less and less. So I think it was in this context that Sri Lanka was mentioned, where you remember the staff level agreement for the program was reached on September 1st, 2022, and then the program was considered by the board, by the IMF Executive Board on March 20th, 2023. So that was quicker than, for example, in the case of Zambia and Chad. And then Ghana, which followed Sri Lanka, was a tad quicker than that as well. So it was basically highlighting that the discussions at the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable have had an impact in the field when it comes to debt restructuring processes, that these are moving along a little bit more quickly.